Hey, I'm Paul, and in this video we're going to talk about the content of the simple will for married couples with children. Okay, so this particular format is not for every married couple, but it is for many. So sometimes people call it the I love you will. So let's get right into it. And so in our situation here, we got a married couple and they have some kids. Let's say they have some kids together. Now, maybe they could each have children from prior marriages or relationships, but let's keep it simple for now. Married couple, they had kids together, and they want to get their will done. So in those circumstances, kind of the people who want to keep things simple will have that what we call I love you will, where they're just, quite frankly, they're leaving everything to their spouse. And when they leave things to their spouse, I don't like going crazy about covering every possible contingency to occur. If I have, 7 great-grandchildren and 2 of them pass away and they're not even born yet, and one of them does have kids and one of them doesn't, then I'd want this to happen. That's a little far-fetched. But a reasonable contingency is your spouse might die before you. So even when someone does a simple I love you will, I leave my estate to my spouse, they also should cover that contingency of if the spouse predeceases. And in most kind of simple I love you wills, it says if my spouse predeceases me, then when I die, I leave everything to my children equally. So that kind of simple will for married couples with children, it's going to have essentially 4 components to it. The first part is it's going to revoke any prior wills and codicils. A codicil is an amendment to your will. You may never have done a will before, but just to avoid any confusion, we always want to make sure we have that statement revoking any prior wills. The second thing that's going to do is it's going to leave your estate to your spouse, and it's going to leave your estate what's called in ownership to your spouse, and that's pretty simple to understand. One spouse dies, everything goes to the surviving spouse. The third thing it's going to do is it's going to provide for that contingency that if your spouse dies before you. So if your spouse predeceases, then your simple will would address perhaps that everything would go to your children equally. And then the fourth thing it's going to do is it's going to name your executor the right way. So in most I love you wills, it says I name my spouse as the executor, but because it's a reasonable contingency to cover that the spouse might die before you, you should always designate a backup or alternate executor, and that might be one or more of the children as an executor or as co-executors. So in general, that's the 4 parts of that I love you will. Now, who shouldn't do an I love you will, leaving everything to the spouse, and if the spouse predeceases, leaving it to perhaps the children equally? There are some people out there, and this is not judging anybody, it's not right, wrong, or indifferent, but there are some people who don't want to leave their estate in ownership to their spouse, maybe for a couple of different reasons, and I'll speak bluntly here. Maybe a spouse is worried that if they leave their estate to their spouse and their spouse either gets remarried or lives with someone, or perhaps gets influenced by someone, then that surviving spouse might not leave it to the kids when that surviving spouse dies. So the I love you will doesn't give the kids any protections from the surviving spouse doing something like that. Or maybe that person who was considering writing the I love you will may want some things to go to the kids even if that spouse dies before his or her spouse. So maybe when the first spouse dies, they want to see some things go to the kids. It's not real common, but it would be a reason not to have the I love you will. Or maybe a spouse might say, I'd want to leave my estate to what's called a testamentary trust. So I want to make my estate available to my spouse for my spouse's needs, but when my spouse dies, I want it to revert back to my children. So that's not the I love you will where you leave your spouse ownership of everything that you own. So that I love you will, it's simple. Boy, it's 4 pieces of content. The software we create with our business enables you to really quickly and easily handwrite your own will that accomplishes what you're trying to accomplish. It's valid, it's enforceable, it's easy to understand, and it'll get the job done if that's what your intent is. So, okay, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell. YouTube will keep you posted on my educational videos. Thumbs up would be great. Comments down below. We'll see you next time.